Elias had always considered himself an ordinary man, the sort of person whose life was measured by small, mundane victories. Getting to work on time, not spilling coffee on his shirt, remembering to water his plants before they staged a rebellion of wilted leaves. Yet, for reasons he could never quite explain, there were moments when luck seemed to bend around him in improbable ways. That morning, for instance, he had been running late, juggling a half-eaten sandwich, a briefcase, and a stubborn umbrella that refused to stay closed. A delivery drone, whirring erratically above the sidewalk, toppled sideways just inches from his head, showering the street with a package of what looked like glow-in-the-dark cat toys. Elias blinked at it, muttered something about urban life being a circus, and continued on, convinced he had narrowly avoided an assault by robotic felines. He didn't notice the figure watching from the shadowed alley across the street, her long ears peeking out just enough to give her away if anyone were paying attention. She leaned lazily against the wall, hands folded, head tilting slightly as if she were observing a particularly amusing experiment. When Elias muttered a complaint about the sandwich collapsing in his hand, she smirked, an expression so human it would have fooled anyone who didn't know better. "Pathetic," she whispered under her breath, though her tone was playful rather than harsh. Then, with a barely perceptible wave of her hand, a gust of wind carried the umbrella into submission, folding it neatly. Elias, none the wiser, sighed in relief and adjusted his tie. By the time he reached the corner cafe, he was already imagining the day's sequence of unfortunate events and how he would survive them with minimal embarrassment. His shoes squeaked on the polished tiles as he fumbled for his wallet. Behind the counter, a robotic barista whirred and clicked, offering him a coffee without waiting for an order. "Ah, the universe has a sense of humor today," he muttered, lifting the cup to his lips, just as a holographic screen projected a brief warning. A malfunctioning energy conduit had erupted 3 blocks away, sending sparks in a chaotic display. Elias froze, staring at the spectacle through the cafe window, silently calculating whether to flee or remain seated. A part of him felt the absurdity of the timing. He reached for the cup again and it tipped, but before it could spill, it was nudged upright by an unseen force. Elias gave a startled laugh. "Okay, universe, I get it. You're watching." From her shadowed vantage point, she blinked once, clearly entertained. The flickering neon light reflected off the subtle metallic threads in her clothing, making her long ears shimmer faintly. She had been doing this delicate dance of intervention and amusement, for years, guiding Elias away from harm while never revealing herself. Her presence was a whisper on the edge of reality, a soft laugh carried in the wind, a gentle push at the exact moment he needed it. Each small miracle was laced with humor, a way to tease the human without overwhelming him. By midday, Elias found himself wandering through a park, thinking about how peculiar the day had been. He stopped to tie his shoe, only to notice a flock of drone birds circling above, their circuits briefly misfiring in a pattern that spelled out the word hello. He frowned, half imagining it, half convinced it was coincidence. Then a squirrel darted across his path, oddly precise in its timing, causing him to stumble just enough to avoid a falling street sign. He laughed loudly, the sound echoing through the park, as if confessing to an invisible audience. "I swear, the universe has it out for me, but in the nicest possible way." She materialized just behind a tree, unseen yet present, her eyes tracking his every movement with a mixture of affection and quiet amusement. The long ears twitched as she noted his clumsy charm, the way he cussed softly under his breath, yet kept moving forward. She nudged a small pebble into his path, forcing him to stumble just enough to look up at a mechanical billboard that displayed a funny animated cat chasing a robotic mouse. Elias laughed again, shaking his head. Okay, I give up. Whoever's running this show has a sense of humor." Hours later, as Elias returned to his modest apartment, He felt a subtle sense of relief and gratitude toward the inexplicable pattern of protection surrounding him. It was never dramatic, never overtly life-threatening, but always precise. Just enough intervention to prevent disaster, always with a humorous twist that made him feel the universe was not entirely cruel. Meanwhile, she remained in the shadows, long ears catching the fading sunlight, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Each laugh he offered, each bewildered expression, was a tiny victory in her long vigil. That night, Elias sat by his window, sipping tea and wondering aloud, maybe I really do have a guardian angel, one with a weird sense of humor, apparently. The words drifted into the night, unheard yet felt. Across the city, the alien girl leaned against a rooftop railing, arms crossed, silently chuckling. She had been with him for years, and despite the cosmic dangers and interstellar conspiracies swirling just beyond his perception, she knew she would continue her silent watch. For now, amusement and care intertwined, a private joke between two beings separated by worlds, but bound by something quietly profound. Elias yawned, finally convinced the day had been absurd in the best possible way, completely unaware of the shadowed figure with long ears that had orchestrated every minor miracle, every narrowly avoided disaster, and every comic misfortune, all in the name of protecting him from a world he had yet to fully understand. Elias never thought a Tuesday could feel like the prelude to a science fiction disaster, but as he walked down the neon-lit streets, dodging hovercars that beeped like caffeinated robots, he realized that ordinary logic no longer applied. He had been heading to the electronics bazaar to buy a new coffee maker, one that promised to anticipate moods through biometric readings, when his path was suddenly blocked by a flickering, holographic security barrier. He stared at it, frowning. The barrier wasn't supposed to be there. Then a small drone zipped past, colliding with it in a comic explosion of sparks and smoke, as though even the machines found him mildly entertaining. Elias muttered, "Really? Is this my life now?" And considered a detour, but curiosity, that relentless human flaw, pushed him forward. Without warning, the world seemed to shift. The buildings stretched in impossible angles, and the air thrummed with energy, making his hair stand on end. Elias stumbled, catching himself on a low-gravity railing, and realized he had wandered into a facility that appeared abandoned but was anything but. Flickering panels displayed alien symbols, some moving, others pulsing like they had a heartbeat. His first thought was to run, but then a robotic voice, somewhere between a sigh and a reprimand, intoned, unauthorized human presence detected, initiating containment protocols. Before he could process, laser-like barriers shot from the walls, creating a maze of light that made him feel like he was trapped in a giant, high-tech carnival. And then she appeared. The alien girl stepped from the shadows, long ears catching the ambient glow. "Relax," she said with a grin that was equal parts mischief and authority. "You're about 2 seconds away from becoming a human popsicle, but I thought I'd introduce myself first." Elias blinked at her, mouth slightly open. You're real." She tilted her head, one ear twitching. "I assure you, entirely real. But yes, your chances of survival improve considerably if you follow me and stop gawking." With that, she extended a hand, and Elias, still dazed, found himself being pulled along just as a wall of lasers rearranged itself like a deadly dance floor. As they navigated the labyrinthine facility, she explained, sometimes serious, sometimes teasing, that a syndicate was harvesting energy from human neural patterns, using it to power interdimensional experiments that could collapse reality in certain sectors if left unchecked. "I've been keeping you out of their clutches for years," she said, glancing at him with an expression that bordered on playful exasperation. "Mostly because you're blissfully unaware of danger, and mostly because your panicked running patterns amuse me." Elias laughed nervously. "So all those weird coincidences, the narrowly avoided disasters, you were behind them." She made a mock bow, "Guilty, and thank you for noticing my subtle artistry. I pride myself on precision and timing. They encountered their first wave of automated sentinels, hovering spheres that fired pulses of concentrated light. Elias tripped over a loose cable, yelping, and landed flat on his face. She rolled her eyes and flicked her wrist, warping the energy pulses so they harmlessly ricocheted against the walls. "Honestly," she muttered, "if chaos were an art form, you'd be the masterpiece." Elias coughed, brushing himself off, glad to be inspiring alien critiques. Her laughter, light and musical, echoed in the chamber as they ran deeper into the facility, ducking behind panels that reconfigured at impossible angles. Along the way, she demonstrated her abilities with subtle manipulations of the environment. Walls bent around corners before he could reach them, creating shortcuts that were invisible until traversed. Holographic decoys of themselves popped up, causing the sentinels to chase illusions while the real pair slipped through. "It's like a high-stakes video game," Elias remarked, marveling at the spectacle. "Only with lasers and slightly more terrifying consequences." She smirked. "And you're the clueless player character as always. Bravo." Yet beneath the humor, there was a rhythm to her movements, a calculated precision that revealed years of training, care, and meticulous planning. Finally, they reached the core of the facility, a room pulsing with a sickly green light. Machines hummed, tethered to an array of human brainwave simulators, each humming with stolen energy. Elias froze. Is that really happening? Are these people? She placed a calming hand on his shoulder, ears brushing the high-tech air. "Relax. Not humans, thankfully, prototypes. The real ones you never would have known would be gone." Then she leaned close, whispering, "And you wouldn't have made it out in one piece without me." Elias swallowed, a mixture of awe and fear coursing through him. He had always thought of danger as abstract. Now he understood the stakes and the magnitude of her loyalty. As they sabotaged the machinery, the alien girl interjected humor to ease the tension. "Careful with that lever, genius. One wrong pull and you'll vaporize us both." "Not to scare you or anything." Elias grinned despite the danger, yanking the lever anyway and causing a minor, controlled explosion that sprayed sparks harmlessly. She laughed, long ears flicking, and muttered, "You have a remarkable talent for chaos. I should be documenting this." The facility alarms wailed, systems shutting down one by one as the syndicate's network collapsed, leaving only the distant hum of emergency lights. Exhausted but exhilarated, Elias slumped against a console, looking at her. I can't believe this. You've been protecting me all these years." Her smile softened, ears twitching with a subtle warmth. "Yes. And I suppose it's finally time to stop hiding. You're smarter than I thought, fast enough to survive, chaotic enough to amuse, and stubborn enough to insist on walking into danger. That combination is rare, even for humans." He laughed, a breathless, incredulous sound. "So what now? Do I have to start thanking you every day?" She smirked, leaning close, a glimmer of cosmic mischief in her eyes. "Perhaps. Or you can start by keeping up, hero. We have a universe to survive." And as they stepped from the flickering corridors into the chaotic night above the city, Elias felt a strange comfort in knowing that danger was no longer an abstract concept, that someone had truly been looking out for him. And that, for the first time, he wasn't alone in the chaos, even if she teased him relentlessly for being spectacularly human. The city skyline was fractured with neon and the occasional shimmer of failing holograms, painting a surreal battlefield for what Elias now fully realized was a fight far beyond anything he had imagined. Beside him, the alien girl adjusted the straps of a device that hummed with alien energy, her long ears flicking with irritation at the chaos surrounding them. "If you trip over another cable, I swear I'm leaving you in a time loop for an hour," she muttered, smirking. Elias glanced down at a small, sparking conduit tangled around his foot, laughed nervously, and freed himself. "Noted. Chaos management level. Beginner," he replied, feeling a strange thrill at the absurdity. The syndicate's remaining forces were converging from every direction, automated drones and human mercenaries blending into a moving wall of threats. The alien girl nudged him forward, glancing at him with one eyebrow raised. Ready to save the universe, human, or at least try not to die spectacularly. Elias raised his hands in mock surrender. I'm as ready as I'll ever be, which isn't very, but let's roll. Their plan was improvised, chaotic, and dangerously brilliant. The alien girl's device projected a temporary distortion field, bending light and space so they could appear in multiple places at once. Elias, armed with a hastily jury-rigged pulse disruptor, accidentally tripped over the field's containment lines, causing the illusion to flicker. One drone slammed into a wall in a spectacular shower of sparks, and Elias shouted, "Guess I just invented a new strategy." She groaned, but the faint twitch of her lips betrayed amusement. They darted through corridors that seemed to bend impossibly, ducking and weaving as the syndicate tried to anticipate their every move. At one point, Elias misjudged a jump and fell into a pool of shimmering liquid that seemed to defy gravity. He flailed, splashing the fluid over a control panel, and the machinery overloaded in a cascade of sparks. "I did it," he yelled triumphantly, dripping and stunned. She shook her head, long ears twitching. "Yes, you destroyed a critical subsystem. Brilliant chaos again. Very heroic, human." The alien girl led him to the core of the syndicate's operations, where a massive orb pulsed with stolen energy, tethered to the minds of hundreds of human test subjects. She whispered, "We need to shut this down carefully or everyone goes boom." Elias swallowed, suddenly aware of how much responsibility rested on their shoulders. "And if we fail?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. She smirked, tapping the orb with a fingertip, causing a ripple of alien energy to dance harmlessly across the surface. "Then, my friend, you become a spectacular cautionary tale." Elias laughed nervously, but his fingers tightened around the pulse disruptor. They worked in tandem, her alien technology stabilizing the field as Elias methodically disrupted the energy matrix, his earlier clumsiness now replaced with focus and intuition. "Look at you," she said softly, ears tilting toward him. "Learning fast. Perhaps humans aren't entirely hopeless." Elias grinned. "I had a great teacher." There was a beat of silence, a subtle connection forming in the chaos before alarms blared and a final wave of mercenaries surged toward them. The last confrontation was messy, absurd, and strangely comical. Elias ducked a laser blast only to slip on a reflective panel, sending himself spinning directly into the control console. Sparks flew, wires sizzled, and he accidentally triggered a feedback loop that short-circuited half the syndicate's machinery. The alien girl groaned. "Honestly, you should be studied for chaos efficiency." Yet her eyes shone with admiration, and together they watched as the remaining threats collapsed under their combined improvisation. Finally, the core shut down, releasing a pulse of energy that washed over the city in harmless waves. The human subjects were freed, blinking in disorientation but unharmed. Elias, breathless and covered in alien residue, turned to her. "We did it." She nodded, a rare seriousness in her expression, ears relaxed. "Yes, you did it. And you've changed. You're more than the man I've been protecting. You're adaptable, courageous, and funny under pressure, which is surprisingly rare in humans." Elias chuckled, feeling a warmth he hadn't recognized before. "I guess all those years of narrowly avoiding disaster weren't wasted after all." As they exited the facility, the city seemed calmer, almost peaceful, though the neon glow still hummed with life. Elias realized he saw the world differently now. Every coincidence, every strange moment, every tiny laugh at misfortune carried meaning. He had learned to trust, to improvise, to appreciate the unseen care that had guided him. The alien girl walked beside him, her long ears brushing against the faint breeze, her presence no longer entirely secret. "Do you ever rest?" he asked lightly. "After all this?" She smirked, nudging him playfully. "Not when you're around. You keep life interesting." Elias laughed, a sound full of relief and gratitude. "I guess I'll